Hi everyone, welcome to Summer Tomato Live. How you guys doing tonight? Can you hear and see me? We've had some connection issues the last couple weeks and I've been working here with the vocal team to make that better for you guys. So let me know if it's something that is working for everyone. Okay, excellent, excellent. Whew, all right, so it looks like everyone's here. So welcome to Summer Tomato Live. I am Daria Pino, the host of the show and the creator of summertomato.com, which is where I give healthy eating tips for food lovers and just love to talk about food and health and nutrition and all that good stuff. So I'm here today to answer your questions. If you have questions for me, you are free to ask them. The show is open to everyone. The best way to do it, though, is to use that little red button over there. Look at that, funny. Little red button over on the right that says ask a question, and that way I can put it up on the screen and everyone can see it. If you'd like to call in and chat with me, that'd be awesome. Just make sure you have some headphones, otherwise it's got horrible feedback and it doesn't work and I'll have to cut you. So if you're going to call in, definitely do that. If anyone would like to be a screener and make sure that spammers don't destroy our lovely chat room, let me know. And you're welcome to talk to each other in the chat room. I'll do my best to monitor it in there, but keep in mind that I won't necessarily be able to see everything. So it's not a good place to ask questions. The best place to ask questions is using the Ask a Question button. Great. So let's get started. Okay, cool. Thanks, Mark. So to get started, a few things I wanted that I've been thinking a lot about lately. The first one, Mark, I'm going to try to find you real fast and make this. Bam. Oh, there you are. All right, Mark, you're a screener, so if you see spammers, kick them out. Thanks. So I wanted to talk about a few things today, but mainly I'm just here to ask questions. So I'm just going to start talking until you guys have questions, and then I'll talk about that. But I wanted to start by talking about something that I've been using a lot lately, and I think it's changing my life, even though I've used it before, but I wanted to show you again. This is my Fitbit. Oh. So I got the new one. It's really cool. That's how many steps I've taken today. It's a little pedometer. That's how many miles I've walked. Today I was really bad. Yesterday I did like 18,000 steps. It was awesome. That's the number of calories I burned, the number of flights I've gone up. So this is the new one. It actually has altitude. And it has this cool little thing that says how active you've been. I've been really bad today. Just at home, and I haven't been to the gym yet. So that's why it's low today. But generally speaking, I had no idea, and I think about this stuff all the time, right? I had no idea how little you walk if you don't try to, and how easy it is to get to 10,000 steps, which is what all exercise physiologists recommend, if you try a little bit. So that's basically like 10,000 steps is basically like 2 walks with my dog to like the slightly longer, farther away park. And like I said, 18,000 steps or 20,000 steps yesterday was 2 trips to 2 different grocery stores, 1 walk with the dog, and I walked down the street to dinner and home. And it's really remarkable. And I wrote about this a few weeks ago. So I didn't really understand why I had started gaining weight last year. Not a lot, and it wasn't like freaking me out or anything, but I'd put on a few pounds after I graduated, and I didn't really understand why. And I was like, well, maybe I'm eating out more, maybe I'm drinking too much. I started thinking about all these things, fooling around with my diet a little bit like I do, and nothing was budging it. Like, I mean, I stopped gaining weight by, being a little bit more mindful of stuff, but, I couldn't get that last, the couple pounds I gained off, and it was the weirdest thing. And then I realized that I had stopped listening to audiobooks, actually, is how I figured this out. I was like, I used to listen to audiobooks on my commute when I walked, and I sort of put 2 and 2 together and realized I wasn't really walking as much as I used to, and that it occurred to me that that was probably 4 miles a day that I cut out, or maybe 2 to 3 miles a day that I cut out, that had a big impact on how much activity I had. Even though I'm still going to the gym like 4 to 6 days a week, doing 30 minutes of cardio, pumping iron. I love lifting weights. I work out pretty hard. So I just think this is a really interesting phenomenon that I don't think people appreciate. One of the reasons is that, so one of the problems with exercise as a weight loss tool is that it makes it, if you go to the gym and you sweat really hard, it's really good for you physically, and it can make you look really good. It can give you, good muscles and give you nice curves, but it makes you hungry. And so you'll get, it's very easy to get, even not lose weight or even get a little bigger, maybe, and still looks a little better. But I've heard a lot of people complain about this with exercising. But the data I've seen, and I have linked to this in Summer Tomato, it suggests that walking actually doesn't do that. It doesn't make you more hungry, unlike exercise. So any extra calories that you burn off while just like walking or doing chores or taking the stairs or stuff like that, which is called NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, burns calories that like you never have to like eat again. You won't be starving. So it's actually, as soon as I started doing that, I'm like instantly back down to like super, like, I didn't ever think I'd be this skinny again. Anyway, so I just wanted to talk about the Fitbit a little bit and say it's a great tracking tool to make sure you get your 10,000 steps a day. And it's kind of fun, like it's almost like a video game because it tracks it wirelessly online. You can follow your friends and you get reports back every week. And, so it's not like a chore, and it's not like it's a lot of work. It's actually really fun. So I recommend it, and I think that it's worth looking into, especially if you're looking to burn more calories or something like that, and you're not good at going to the gym or you're too busy. I mean, because, if you do, like when I started walking to work when I worked in the lab, I was walking more because, it added maybe like 10 minutes to my commute per day, like literally like 5 to 10 minutes, like each trip, sorry. And that's nothing. I mean, compared to how much more I enjoyed the walk than taking the train, which is like crowded and gross in the morning, and just how good you feel, just sort of getting moving a little bit, and all the extra weight. I mean, that wasn't like a ton of weight that I lost, but 3-4 pounds on a girl my size, that's a whole pant size. So I think it's pretty cool. Oh, Krista's here. Okay, so there's 50 of you in here, and no one's asked any questions yet. You're just captivated by my Fitbit story. All right, there's a couple other things I will talk about then, if I may. Here, let me start with a couple books I'm reading that have been really awesome lately. So I don't know if any of you guys have read Michael Pollan and the Omnivore's Dilemma, which I recommend. It's changed my life. It's one of the best books I've ever read. Andrew, please ask your question in using the Ask a Question button. It's a really good question. I'd love to answer it. Anyway, so in the Omnivore's Dilemma, Michael Pollan ends up in like one of his food journeys interviewing this farmer named Joel Salatin, who has this amazing farm out in the Shenandoah Valley. And it's one of the most inspiring parts in the book. It totally makes you like leave the city and move to a farm and like start growing chickens. And he just wrote a book that I'm reading right now, which is excellent. I recommend this for everyone. It's called Folks, This Ain't Normal. And I actually had the privilege of interviewing Joel last week and talking to him quite extensively about the book. I'm working on a post about this stuff. But, just to give you guys a little preview, he's the most fascinating guy because his world is so different from my world, right? Like he's this like really cool farmer, but he's rural and I am urban. So he knows everything about food, knows everything about animals, knows everything about ecology. And I just sort of know what I read about, but nothing really. And from this book, I'm learning that I know basically nothing about this stuff. And also, he brings a really interesting voice because the people I normally have chats online with about food and these sorts of issues, food and politics and ecology and these sorts of things, they tend to be very liberal, very highly educated. Joel's educated too, but he's a conservative. He brings a really interesting conservative viewpoint to this issue, and still we agree with each other on almost everything, which is really cool. But he's made me think a lot about assumptions I make, and I think anybody that's interested in these issues, no matter whether you're vegetarian or a meat eater, whether you're liberal or conservative, whether like no matter how you feel about these things, I think anybody could learn a lot from reading this book. So I really recommend it. It's really cool. Okay. So I see a question in here. Oh, great. So Andrew asked this question, so I'm going to answer it. He says, how do you gauge, what do I use to gauge my ideal or proper weight? I struggle to figure out where I should be. So this is a great question because I have a lot of trouble with the term ideal weight. We're sort of in this culture where for some reason we got stuck with this horrible number called the BMI, the body mass index, which is a number that reflects your weight as it relates to your height. And there was probably a time in history when that was a useful measure, but I don't think it's a very useful measure right now. And the reason is because we have incredible athletes right now who, like professional basketball players, like have ridiculous BMIs because they're so muscular and they're tall or whatever. And, professional sports players, they're in great shape for the most part. And, nobody should be telling them they're overweight. So the BMI is inherently flawed for a lot of people. Another thing is it's not really what's important. I mean, thinness isn't necessarily ideal. You want low body fat, sure. But you want good muscle tone. You want good cardiovascular health. So for myself personally, I think and then another thing that there's also these issues of there's small people and like larger people naturally, right? Like we've all known people that will just never be skinnier than something, and then I will never be gigantic. I've got like these tiny little wrists that, I could almost fit in kids' clothes, and like the jewelry I wear is really small and stuff. So, people are going to be all over the place. So for myself personally, to figure out what I should weigh, and I feel like I am right now, like in my ideal spot, I make sure that I'm healthy. And if you're healthy, right? Like, if you can run a mile without it being too hard. If you can do pull-ups, push-ups, lift weights. Not that all girls should be able to do pull-ups, but if you're strong, if you're fit. If it's hard for you to walk up and down a flight of stairs, you should be exercising more. So that's one way. So if you're fit, that's half the battle. And then the rest of it's more aesthetic. In terms of how much body fat you should have, that is really, it is nice to be in the healthy range, in the sort of 15 to 20% BMI range, or body fat is healthy. Maybe even a little higher than that is fine. For myself, I can tell by looking at myself naked if I'm right. You know what I mean? And also by how my clothes fit. Like if my clothes, it's one thing to need a bigger size. It's another thing for your like gut to be hanging over your pants, right? And no BMI is going to tell you that. So if you feel comfortable with the way you look and you're fit, I think you're at your ideal weight. And if you want to, lose 5 pounds here or there for aesthetic purposes, that's up to you. I don't think that's a health issue. So I think that's a really interesting question. I don't think science in general has a good answer for it because we're all so different. So, make sure you're healthy, get your blood checked, do fit tests, get your exercise checked, walk your 10,000 steps a day, and eat well. And if you still feel like you're big after doing all those things, you can try eating a little less. You can try, if it makes you happy, you can try pumping a little more iron, get better curves, and hopefully that'll give you your answer. So great question. I love that question, and it's actually something I want to read more about. Okay, here's an interesting one. Okay, you guys have all sorts of questions. So those of you asking questions in the chat room, oh, by the way, I'm having a beer because it's just been one of those days. So Shiner Bock. Those of you who are asking questions in the chat room, please do it over using the Ask a Question button, because I can't see your stuff in the chat room. I just can't keep up with it. There's too much stuff going on. Okie dokie. Okay, so sorry, back to the next question. Do I believe that gluten allergies are real? And if so, can you develop them at any time? Yes and yes. So absolutely, I mean, some gluten allergies are incredibly severe, actually, and you would know if you had it. There's also a lot of degrees of that, though. There's different levels of intolerance. I'm reading a book right now that's going to talk about it, and I will write a review on this, as a zillion people have asked, called Wheat Belly. Has a lot of problems. There's a lot of ifs and maybes and speculation in the book, but I do think he brings up some interesting points about the role of gluten, wheat and gluten specifically, too, in our diet, and how problematic it can be. So as much as I disagree with a lot of the individual points in the book, and like I said, I'll write this all up in a review, the one thing that's awesome about the book is the only thing you have to do to find out if you feel better without gluten is stop eating it for 4 weeks. If you don't feel better, maybe try 6 weeks, but for the most part, there's no harm in that. If you go 4 weeks without bread and flour, it's basically all you need to cut out, and you feel amazing, eureka, you know what I mean? Problem solved. So what I love about it is that's a really easy way to test your hypothesis that maybe it's gluten. And what more could you ask for, really? It's easy. But yeah, it's a very real problem, and it is getting worse, for sure. The data on that is very convincing. Okay. Okay, this might be confusing for me. I might need you to clarify. Okay, so after last week's episode, any new changes on your recommendation for supplements with B12 omega-3s for vegans? So I think my last week's episode, I was saying that we talked about multivitamins and vitamin D. Those are, so you can watch the last week's episode. Actually, I haven't put that up yet. So yeah, we fixed it. We fixed the lag, Kento. So I didn't address these specific vitamins. I think for vegans, absolutely, vitamin B12 and omega-3 is still very important. Do not megadose. You never want to megadose on anything. And that was sort of the take-home message after the last show. Megadosing has never been shown to be helpful, but you definitely need to get vitamin B12 and omega-3s if you're vegan. Preferably EPA, like fish sources of omega-3 too. So yeah, definitely do that. You need that. Good question. Okay, so Mark wants to know, most mornings it's tough to fit breakfast in with early work hours at the gym. Any recommendations? Wake up 5 minutes earlier? Breakfast should be really fast. I'm trying to think of something that's easy as hard-boiled egg. I know somebody who just started eating a hard-boiled egg for breakfast and added beans to his diet, didn't take anything away. I mean, he was already eating fairly low carb and stuff, but he started eating a hard-boiled egg for breakfast and added beans to his diet, lost 8 pounds in a month. And this is a guy who's already super fit. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's worth doing stuff like that, even if it's super easy. For me, I have muesli that's pre-mixed, so I make it myself. I have a video for that on Summer Tomato. You just search muesli, M-U-E-S-L-I. And I put hot water in it. I put it in the microwave for 2 minutes. I take it out, I sprinkle cinnamon on it, I put some almond milk on it to cool it down, and I eat it. It takes like the entire process is maximum 6 minutes. It's really easy. So I would really just try to find a way to do that. I do think you'll benefit from it, and I think you'll feel a lot better. And make sure you get some protein in there. Make sure if you have muesli or something like that, there's nuts or something like that. Good question. Yeah, tell me if it does start lagging, by the way, because my connection has been sort of in and out, and it was like really bad half an hour ago, and now it's getting better, or now it's fine, which is good. So this is an interesting question. Can vegans get enough B12 by drinking kombucha daily? No. No, you have to take a supplement. It's not, it doesn't even come close. Yeah, sorry. Supplements aren't that bad. I mean, if you're vegan especially. This is an interesting question. So Anna wants to know, is there any way to actually test to see if you're deficient in omega-3s? So I imagine that there is a blood test to test omega-3 levels. What I don't know is if there is a standard by which to compare it to. That's an interesting question. It seems like it should be able to be measured, but I don't know exactly. If you want me to dig deeper into it, you can ask me. If you're a subscriber, you can drop me an email or go to the Ask Me section of the blog, and I can look into it for you. It seems like it's definitely measurable, right? Because we know that, you know, people with certain like levels in their blood have various characteristics. You know, their lower heart disease and blah blah blah. And I know you can raise the levels by taking supplements, but it's not. I don't know the exact number. And I don't like our physicians are pretty bad at this sort of stuff. So, all right. Okay, this is an interesting one. So, any suggestions for healing gut permeability and leaky gut? Yeah, I mean, one of the best things you can do is give up gluten for that. So, yeah, that would be my recommendation to start. I'm not like super into the leaky gut stuff. I know a little bit about it. You know who really knows a ton about it is Rob Wolf. I think he's a little bit extreme. Like, I think it's like all he cares about. But if you're having problems with it, he's probably a really good person to ask about how to fix it, because I hear him talking about this stuff all the time, and he's a smart dude. Awesome. Yeah, so Anna in the chat room, who asked the question earlier about omega-3s, says her doctor has no idea, ask a dietitian. Hey, Anna, I mean, if you want, like, I'm happy. So the way to find out the answer to that question is to dig through PubMed, which is the medical journal database, and look for scientific articles that have the answers. So I can do that if you want. But, I mean, doctors are totally not trained generally to go through science. They have no idea how to tell a good study from a bad study. You know, that's not their training. Their training is to diagnose illnesses and prescribe solutions to them. So unless they learned it in med school, they don't know it. Okay. So I have time for a couple more questions if you guys have any. The person looking for something new for breakfast, like if you don't want to do the heated muesli, you could do just on yogurt, and you don't even have to cook it. It's like scoop some plain yogurt. Just make sure you get yogurt without sugar. Put some muesli on it and eat it. I recommend the little cinnamon. It's tasty. Really, it's super, I mean, super fast, like less than 5 minutes. Okay, great. More questions? Oh, cool. Any advice on green tea? I'm switching from coffee with cream to tea. How much for benefits? Okay, so this is something I know really well because I've done this. So I switched about a year ago. I finished my PhD, and I decided I wanted to get off my coffee habit, because I love coffee. I still love coffee. I still drink coffee. But my problem was I needed coffee. If I didn't have coffee by noon, I had a horrible headache. And that sucks, you know? It's like you go on vacation and you'd like to have a lazy morning or get up early and go on a hike. You don't want to have to be like hunting down an espresso just so that you're like human. So I decided I was going to wean myself onto tea. I didn't want to take meds, because every other time in the past I got off coffee, I had to take Advil because the headaches were so bad. Last time I decided I didn't want to. So I started with Japanese sencha tea, which is a really rich, bright green tea, like fluorescent green tea. And I started with that because it has a lot of caffeine compared to like other green teas, which can be really delicate. And I found that it was the only tea that I could drink a small enough volume and still not get caffeine headaches. So, but it did taper me down a little bit. So I started with the sencha. I needed to do sencha for like a few weeks. And I instantly felt better, instantly started sleeping better, not having like as much just anxiety, and just it was really a nice feeling. I just felt more, even working, which I love coffee. You get a little coffee buzz going and you can get going, but tea is much more mellow, and I don't know. It feels good. I definitely recommend trying it. After a few weeks of sort of weaning down to the sencha, then I could go down to, your black teas are going to have the most caffeine, and then and oolongs have a good amount of caffeine too. So, now I just have whatever tea I want for breakfast. Every now and then I have coffee. It's delicious. I love it. So, great question. This is really funny. So what kind of food does Toaster eat? All organic? Yeah, I think it's organic. I get a brand that, we were trying to go grain-free for a while, because it's just the companies that make grain-free food tend to be higher quality. They care a lot about the ingredients, and I believe they're organic. But he loves grain so much that it was like impossible to keep him away from like bread and stuff in the park. He would just find them on the ground, and then he would get sick because he wasn't used to them. So I had to switch him back onto a grain-based diet. Not based, but now I buy food that's made by one of the same companies that makes the grain-free food, but only has like a little bit of grains in there, just so his stomach is used to it, so that when he finds like pizza crust on the ground in the park before I can get to him, he won't get sick. But yeah, I try to feed my dog really well, and he always eats what I eat. When I'm cutting up salad, he gets the salad scraps. When I have leftover eggs, he gets some eggs. And I just don't give him anything with garlic or onions or grapes or avocado or chocolate or caffeine, obviously. Awesome. Someone's asking about fasting. I don't have enough time to answer that right now. I like this. Have you been taking advantage of the fall apple harvest? Any suggestions for fresh apples? I love them. I love the Arkansas blacks. I love the pink pearls. Have you seen them? You cut them open and like literally pink flesh inside the apple. The phyllo apples at this heirloom apple place in San Francisco are mind-blowingly good. They're basically golden delicious, but like the heirloom variety. Ah, they're so good. Go nuts with the apples this time of year, guys. They're so amazing. Great question, James. Okay, 2 people are asking about fasting. So the question, somebody, Brian in here is asking me about mate. I haven't read the research, so I can look into it for you if you want to go to the Ask Me section of Summer Tomato. I'm happy to look into that for you. Do I want to take the fasting question? Sure, I'll take the fasting question really fast. Okay, so what are your thoughts on fasting? Have read some good things. I'm just curious what your viewpoint is. And then another question was, what are the positive and negative impacts on fasting for 24 hours? I have mixed feelings about fasting as well. I don't think it's innately dangerous. I have seen studies that show benefits for certain measures. That being said, most people eat so much and eat so bad that stopping that for a day, it's going to help a lot of things. So there's that. But, a lot of people are sort of religious about it. Like, they think fasting is important because it helps us mimic our, like, Paleolithic ancestors' diets that were, like, sometimes bountiful and sometimes not. I've seen actually some negatives for long-term intermittent fasting. So what they showed was, for short-term intermittent fasting, improved some heart disease numbers and stuff like that. But if the people did it for 2 years, it actually ended up being bad. That was just one study I saw. I don't think we really know. I definitely don't think it's necessary to be healthy. It's one of those things that, you're definitely like an edge case if you're like so worried about health that you're considering intermittent fasting. That being said, if you try it and you like it, and it seems to give you some either emotional or physiological benefit, go for it. I don't think it's dangerous really to do it every once in a while. You know, occasionally, like, I'll go I'll go out and I'll have a big meal, and I won't be hungry in the morning. Like, I'll actually be like still full. And on those days, you know what? I don't need breakfast. I eat breakfast 98% of the time. But, you know, if I want to go to lunch, all the way to lunch without eating because I feel like it, you know, whatever. It's fine. Like one meal one day, like stuff like that doesn't hurt you. Okay, so great. So this is all the questions, and it's been about half an hour. Oh, for the cancer and mate question, yes, there's a lot of reasons people in third world countries can have cancer that is not explained by one object. So, especially GI tract stuff, it tends to be really common in GI tract cancers tend to be really common because of like just different contaminants and viruses and stuff that they're more likely to be exposed to in the food. So yeah, I mean, you need multiple studies and stuff to back that up. So yes, excellent questions today. Thank you everyone for joining. If I didn't get to your question, or if I told you the question was too complicated and I need to go do extra research for it, I'm happy to do that over at Summer Tomato. I do it for subscribers. It's $3.99 a month, and I'll answer any question you have at any time within 48 hours, which I do that just so that, because I get a ton of questions, as you can imagine. So I charge just to filter out people. If you only have one question, I'll do it for $12.99. This is just how I keep my inbox manageable. So thank you guys very much for tuning in. I do this about every other week. I'm kind of liking the Wednesday night at 6 thing, but I'll occasionally throw in a noon show because I know that some people live in England. So thanks, guys, and have a great night.